The Lord appeared to Solomon, King Solomon, the son of David. The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, "Ask something of me, and I will give it to you." What would you ask for? If God appeared to you in a dream and said, "Ask something of me, and I will give it to you." Just think about that. What would you ask for? Big decision. We might have some things that are immediate, maybe a particular crisis that you or someone who's dear to you is facing, and so you might be thinking, exactly what might I ask for? It might be for some particular crisis that's there right now, or something that our world is facing right now. Or it might be something that is not an issue of the day, but an issue of the ages. That was here before coronavirus and is going to be here long after. What is it you would ask for? I think it's interesting that question, because we ponder things that we don't have control over, that we wish God would come and heal and alleviate. But it also makes me think, well, what are the things that I want God to fix that really I could probably fix myself or work on myself? Because some of those are things that are within my control. My attitude, my approach to life. I know in my own life there have been things that used to set me off and make me react. I really disagree with that, and as soon as I'd hear about it, I'd state my opinion. But then over time, I don't think I've become lazy about that. It's more, I realize maybe that thing wasn't as important as I thought. Or there are people I really respect and love who disagree, and I think that there are different points of view on that. And I notice I used to just react, where now I go, well, I might still have the opinion, but I don't react because I know there are a lot of different perspectives or responses, or I just can agree to disagree. I think sometimes we have to look at that and say, well, what are the things that I can do, like the Serenity Prayer, to change the things that I can, and also to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. What do I have ability to change in my life? But that's a good question. How do I need God's help with that? Well, that's a lead into the gospel for tonight. Our church provides this question, or this opportunity that Solomon had in the Old Testament reading today, to sort of set up the gospel about the parables that Jesus provides for us. What are you looking for? What do you treasure? What is most valuable to you? And so there are these examples, these two parables in particular I'd like to draw to your attention. The found treasure. And this would happen in the Middle East. There are occasional, in the first century too, they didn't have the same records that we have, or sometimes somebody might have buried a treasure in a field. They didn't have banking like we have or think of now. They might have buried something and then died suddenly before they could tell anybody where it was. Or maybe the land they had was occupied by the foreign nations, like, they're under the occupation of Rome at the time of Jesus. So maybe it was taken away. So it was not a rare circumstance. In fact, I would imagine the listeners of Jesus' parable, they would have all at least known someone who found a buried treasure if they didn't themselves find a buried treasure. So maybe they're digging a foundation on property that they had acquired and they discover this. Or maybe they're working for the owner and they discover it. That's why, they wouldn't tell the owner about it. They'd go and buy it from the owner and then acquire the land, and then they get the treasure. So there are different ways that people would have understood this, but it's still something that just happened. They weren't looking for it, and they just happen to run across this treasure, and they see the value of it so great that they will sell everything to acquire the treasure. They will get rid of everything to be able to acquire the treasure, because the treasure is more important than anything else that they have. And that's what the apostles essentially did. Once they discovered the Lord, they left their nets behind. You know, when he called Peter and John and James on the shore of the Sea of Galilee in Capernaum, they left everything behind and followed him. And I think what's important for us to notice about this, it's not about what they're giving up. Because I think when we approach a lot of the things the Lord might be asking us, or faith or conversion, we often think, well, what do I have to give up? What's that God asking me to give up? This is more about the treasure. If you see what the treasure is, this gift that God is giving us, wow, then everything else pales in comparison. Huh? And I know someone who came to faith that way. Judy, she walked into a Catholic church. She went there. She wasn't Catholic. She just went to pay respects to a friend who had died, and that person was Catholic, and the funeral was at the Catholic church. She walked in, and in the moment she was in the church and looked around, the thought came to her, I'm home. Just like that. The buried treasure. I'm home. And so then she became a Catholic. And she was the only one in her family for a while. Then her son and daughter, who probably were teenagers at the time, but then I got to know them when they were in college. But they, one by one, in their own pace, kind of were drawn to that and became Catholics. And the last one was Judy's husband, John, who told me one day, my wife fell in love with another man, Jesus. I can't compete with that. So he decided, yeah, you can't beat him, join him. But the interesting thing about that comment is he's saying, at first he kind of saw the faith in his family as some competitive factor that's interrupting what used to be. But actually when he realized, no, this makes all of us better, the gift of this faith. And he saw the treasure too, and he also became a Catholic. Isn't that interesting? But it's a random discovery. That happens from time to time. Okay, so the other parable is a little bit different. It's about something valuable, this pearl of great price. But what's a little different is it's about a merchant searching for fine pearls. So he is actively looking to discover what God is providing. That's because it's about the kingdom of heaven, right? So he's searching for fine pearls, and then he sees it, a pearl of great price, so valuable among all the pearls that it's worth selling everything so that he can acquire that pearl. Again, it's not about what you give up, but it's about what you discover. And I think, for an example of this, when it comes to the Catholic faith, I think of our own Father Greg Bronsma, and I think I have this correctly. I texted him earlier. I want to make sure I have the details right, but I think I have this. I didn't hear back from him yet. But I think when he first became drawn to the Catholic Church, it took a while. He wanted to think about, is this really the right call, how the Lord is leading me? And he spent 8 years studying. He's a very academic guy, those who knew him. I mean, he's very approachable, but he loves to read. He loves books. And he kept reading and reading and reading and reading. And it was finally a book on the Eucharist that was sort of the last piece. But it was all of that searching that prepared him to know what he's looking for, and then he discovered his treasure of the Catholic faith and became a Catholic. And then his mom, within a year or two after that. But that searching was important. That was part of his journey. It's not because he couldn't figure it out well enough. No, he was a very insightful, spiritually alert individual. He always has been. But that was his journey. That was just part of his journey. So sometimes we come to faith in different ways. But that searching is important. And I think not just for those coming to the faith. Those are two examples of people who came to the faith. But I think for us in our walk as Catholics, even if you've been Catholic since your baptism as an infant, or coming to know the Lord in different ways, those are different ways in which the Lord is revealed. Sometimes in a surprise, like a treasure, and sometimes something we've been exploring and seeking, understanding, and then finally it becomes clear in our lives. And we realize the importance of our faith. So I think it's important for us to search, but sometimes it's still going to just happen randomly. So the Lord touches our hearts, reaches out to us in different ways. But it's a treasure. It's a treasure, something so valuable. It's more important than anything else. St. Ignatius described it this way when he talked about the first principle and foundation of life is to recognize that our ultimate destiny is to be with Christ, is to be with him here in this world and in the world to come. And then everything else that happens is to either direct us toward Christ, or if it distracts us from Christ, then get rid of it. It's not giving up anything for Jesus. It's more that Jesus is more important. I don't want anything in my life that distracts me from Christ. And we can evaluate almost everything in our lives that way. What is drawing me closer to Christ, and what is separating me from Christ? We can look at and evaluate our attitudes that way. We can look at our own possessions and evaluate them that way, or our attachment to our possessions, or whether we just, know this possession, it's good for our family, it helps us. And so we're not preoccupied by the thing, but what it does for us to draw us and our families closer in love for each other and for God. So again, if we know what the principle is, what the pearl is, what the prize is, then whatever God calls us to, the commandments, to sacrifice for others, serving the poor, spending time in prayer, it becomes more obvious because whatever will help me to be closer to Christ, to be drawn to Christ, to be strengthened, to live for things that are eternal. I'd like to conclude with the collect for today's Mass because it sums it up very well. This collect comes up occasionally in the year, and I was pleased to see it today, this prayer, where it reaches out to God. And you can find these online if you just say, the prayers of the Mass, especially 17th Sunday of Ordinary Time, or the prayers for the Mass, Catholic Mass. You can Google those things and you'll discover this. Oh God, protector of those who hope in you. That's what God does. He looks over us, watches over us, guides us. And who else is God? Here's a little definition. God, without whom nothing has firm foundation. This is God, the ground of all being, the source of all life, the one who existed before time and space, who created time and space, all that is, out of love for us. So God, without whom nothing has firm foundation. Nothing is holy without God. And so here's what we're asking. Bestow in abundance your mercy upon us. Why do we want God's mercy? Here's why. And grant that with you as our ruler and guide. So the pearl of great price, the one who is our ruler and guide, who leads us in life, lets us know what life is all about, that we may use the good things that pass. I like this sentence because it's saying there are a lot of things in this world that are not going to be here forever. In fact, may not be in your life for very long. It might be something you have for a few years and it's helpful for you. Or it might be with you all your life. It might even be a family heirloom, but it's something that you can't take with you. Well, let us use those good things that pass in such a way as to hold fast even now to the things that ever endure. The things that pass are only there to help us to hold on to the things that ever endure. If they don't do that or take us away from the things that endure, the spiritual things, the eternal things that God gives us, if they're taking us away from that, well, then we don't need them. So may we use the gifts that God gives us, our lone lives, the people, the gifts, the material things, those things that pass. Of course, the people in our lives, they're not going to pass. We are eternal beings. We might pass from this life, but into the world to come. But may we recognize that they all are to direct us for the purpose of directing us to the fullness of eternal truths, where God is at the center of all